Hey guys, okay, so I'm just hopping on here. I'm going to be doing a sort of like a quick video series over the next 3 weeks. I'm going to be posting anywhere from like 4 to 5 videos a week. And this first one is coming from my personal page, but I'm actually going to be broadcasting them over on my business page, so you can catch them over there. But I'm also going to be sharing them here. But you want to go over to my business page. I'm going to drop a link in the comments so that you can find it. And we're going to be talking about real quick. It's going to be like 5, 6 quick reasons of things that are all preventing you from losing body or belly fat. Hey, Dawn. So probably the first thing that we have to get out of the way is proper nutrition. So you can't be, like on again, off again with your nutrition plan and still expect results. Like you need to be consistent all the time. So you might be good for like maybe 4 or 5 days, and then the weekend you're not good at all because you feel like, oh, I did really well. I can kind of take a break from all of this. And then you end up undoing, hey, Angela, you end up undoing a lot of the good work that you did during the week, because the things that you tend to go for are, like the things that taste good, so it's like chips and like pizza and nachos and those fat and carb combinations, which are really not good together. You're going to be putting yourself in a situation where you're going to be more likely to gain body fat when you combine a high fat and a high starch combination. So the other thing to keep in mind too is that when people think about belly fat, they think, oh, I have to drop my carbs. That may be a component, but the problem is when people drop their carbs, sometimes they will increase their protein, and you can have excessive amounts of protein. So something can occur called gluconeogenesis. And when that occurs, that means that your body is converting a non-carbohydrate substance into a glucose substance, which can then be stored if it's not used. So super high protein diets, they can turn into gluconeogenesis or create gluconeogenesis because the protein is so high, it's greater than your needs and really exceeding them. So it can be converted to glucose. So not many people know that, and they just kind of default to like this high protein diet. For some people that works great. For other people that does not work great at all, and it can actually make losing belly fat a whole lot more difficult. So that's reason number 1. So reason number 2 is sleep. So if you are someone that is sacrificing sleep to exercise, or like you find yourself staying up really late at night, and you're stuck like scrolling through social media and whatever else, this can actually affect how your body processes carbohydrates, because it changes your insulin sensitivity. So it literally changes how your body processes carbohydrates. So it's very difficult for your body to handle what might be a fairly normal carbohydrate load if you're really sleep deprived, and it could be preferentially stored, because that's how sleep deprivation can alter your body. So not many people know about that. Number 3 is stress. So if you're highly stressed, you are going to be more prone to liberating sugar. It's going to be, present in your bloodstream. It's going to make it a lot more likely for you to gain belly fat, especially if you combine it with a few other things. For some people, combining coffee with a high stress life or situation can really lead to an increase in belly fat. This is just my personal experience with clients I've noticed. And sometimes when we take out their coffee and exchange it for something else, they start to see better results in the belly area. Only because coffee can be stressful to some people, not to everybody, but it can be to some people. And the body just doesn't react very well to it. So sometimes we switch out the coffee for something else. I'm not anti-caffeine by any means, so we choose like a tea, or something like that. So we went over stress. I've got a list here I'm reading off so I don't miss anything. So we want to look at number 4. So we want to take a look at your training and make sure that you have a proper balance of everything. So with training, it's just like medicine. You want the dose to be good for you. If it's too high, it's going to be a problem. If it's too low, it's not going to have much of effect. So there's some people that, think like, okay, I want to lose belly fat. I really shouldn't lift weights. What I need to be doing is cardio like 7 days a week. I need to be running like 7 days a week. And that's how I'm going to lose my belly fat. Well, there's some people that handle that well. There's some people that really don't. And that can cause a stress response that increases cortisol. So we know that cortisol is not inherently bad, but when you have an excess cortisolic response, that can lead to excess belly fat. that can lead to people getting kind of like this like peripheral leanness, where they'll start to lose, like, from the outer part, arms in, legs in, and they might have really thin, like, arms and legs, but then they have this like area in the midsection, which could all be cortisol dependent. It could be because they're doing way too much cardio. And this happens to a lot of distance runners. They'll be really lean with their, extremities, like their arms, their legs, but then their midsection is like not very defined and it's kind of squishy. And that can be a cortisol function. The other thing is, if you want to have prominent ab visibility, you do need to train them. And I don't mean like, doing like hundreds of crunches, because after you get past a certain number of repetitions on certain things, then it starts to be kind of like useless. So if you really want your abs to pop, you have to train them just like you would any other muscle group. So we're talking like weighted crunches, going to failure, a lot of time under tension. So that's a training principle. So time under tension means that you are continuing to stress a muscle for a prolonged period of time. And that's going to be true of ab training. Now, some people don't need to train their abs at all because aesthetically, they can see them. That's not going to be everybody. Some people do actually need to train their abs, and they need to train their abs with weight so that the muscle changes and it responds just like you would, like you would train anything else. So that's another factor, is people are not training correctly for abs. They're doing too much cardio, they're not doing enough weightlifting, and they are not doing weightlifting with their abs. And one thing that I do want to caution you on is you never, ever, ever, ever want to do weighted oblique exercises. I don't know if you're somebody that has, either you've done this or you've seen somebody in the gym do this, but where you take the plate on the one side and you put your arm up in the air, and when you do this, the whole like, this like whole side dip thing, you definitely don't want to do that because that's actually going to thicken your waist. Because if you think about what you're doing, if your oblique muscles, they run like this, if you're stretching it out and you are telling it to do work and to be strong, doing this motion, it's going to grow back thicker and it's going to grow back stronger. So many people will find that their waist actually starts to get thicker. They may have some oblique definition, but it's getting very thick. So I don't really recommend that to anybody that wants, a more like, athletic, aesthetic looking waist. There's other ways to train your obliques. I definitely wouldn't do side dips like ever for any reason, unless you really need the stability for like a sport or something like that. Then you can do side dips, but it would have to be very sport specific. So now we're on number 5. So number 5 is internal inflammation. So we know that inflammation is not inherently bad. There's going to be inflammation for certain things. It's part of the of processes that your body will do, for certain things. Inflammation is a healing response. However, there can be instances where your internal inflammation is kind of inappropriately too high. And when you're internally inflamed, that can give you sort of like this like waterlogged appearance. It can be everywhere. It can be, it can show up as 5 to 7 pounds on the scale for some people. So if you have a lot of internal inflammation coming from any variety of things, we'll just talk about food, but if you're somebody that's eating something that's going to increase your internal inflammation, like refined sugars, like a great example. So I don't hate refined sugar, I eat it in moderation. However, if you're eating a lot of refined sugar, that can cause internal inflammation that can kind of give you that like waterlogged look. So let's say you're somebody that's in a caloric deficit, you're cutting calories, you're doing all these things, you're only taking in 1,000 calories, which I don't recommend, by the way. I'm just, kind of using that as an example. But let's say you're on a very low caloric diet, but you have like 1 or 2 or 3 Cokes to go with it. So let's say they're like 100 calories each. You are putting a ton of sugar into your body, and your body is more than likely going to respond by becoming very inflamed. I can't say that it's going to happen to everybody, but more than likely, that's what's going to happen. So even in a caloric deficit, if you are consuming foods that are going to increase your systemic inflammation, like, a lot of refined sugar, and we're talking excess amounts, that's going to make you look more puffy. And then that's going to show up on the scale as either you're not losing weight or you're actually gaining weight. It's not actually weight. It's actually internal inflammation. So when we can cool that, which is like a whole other live for another day, then you're going to see like the fruits of your labor. So that's one thing. And the very last thing, let me check my list. Okay, the very last thing that we want to talk about is gut health. So everybody talks about gut health. Everybody talks about how important probiotics are for you, things like that. That's part of the equation for sure. But in this instance, we want to talk about gut imbalances and how they affect the belly area. So when I have a client that comes to me and they say, I have this belly fat problem I want to get rid of, the first thing I say to them is, okay, I want you to press on your belly, you know, like lower down, not on top by the belly button. So press beneath the belly button. If you push on it, if it springs back out like a balloon, the chances are pretty good that there could be some sort of imbalance going on there. So what you're feeling is sort of like gash, you could feel inflammation, you know, things like that. So that would actually be, you know, like a gut imbalance that you actually would be dealing with, and not so much belly fat over the top. You can have belly fat over the top, but oftentimes beneath it all, there is a gut imbalance. So yes, definitely parasites, Angela says, I mean, dysbiosis, SIBO, you could be having a reaction to a food, like a sensitivity, not a true allergy, or a true allergy could do it too, but even a sensitivity could do that, where it kind of pushes, you know, it pushes out your gut a little bit. So like I said, I have people do like the balloon test where they kind of push. If it springs out, there is an underlying gut problem that is pushing everything out and making it seem like there's a belly fat area. There might be some fat over the top. And the way you can tell if it's fat is, you know, if you kind of like flick it, it should kind of ripple like a pond. So that's how you know if it's, you know, true belly fat. It's going to ripple a little bit because there's probably a little bit of fat there, and there's probably a little bit of water retention. Most people have that. But beneath all of that, there could be something going on with your gut. So if there is something going on with your gut, you're going to want to address that, because once you do, all of your other systems are going to start working much better, more efficiently. You're going to start responding to your eating and your exercise program to the fullest extent, whereas before, if you don't address that, you may have to, you know, quote unquote, diet really, really hard to get anywhere and keep dropping your calories and keep dropping your calories, because you've got so many other factors that are throwing off how your body's actually responding. So I'm just going to recap real quick what our 6 reasons are. So our 6 reasons are proper nutrition, you know, and sticking to the plan, not just doing it 4 days on, you know, 2 or 3 days off, you know, things like that. Sleep is a big one, changes how we process carbohydrates. We won't do as great a job handling them, and we're going to be more prone to storing them. Number 3 is stress. Number 4 is training properly. So not too much, not too little of certain things, training your core with weight if you want ab visibility. Number 5 is internal inflammation, and number 6 is gut health. So I'm going to be, like I said, continuing this series from my business page. I'll drop the link down there, and just, you know, stay tuned. I'm going to be doing about 4 or 5 live videos a week. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a great afternoon, you guys.